Your parents, thanks a lot, Caleb. I mean, I'm not going to say your name. Thanks a lot. This is being recorded, so I won't say your name. Yeah, Timothy. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to lie. But we hear a lot of things. Probably most of us, when we think control, it's not something that's good, right? If you're with me. Because we're all human, we have a certain way of doing things, right? We hate the idea of being under someone's control or being told what to do, right? Who's with me? Who wants to be told what to do, right? Again, probably no one. But I think most of us would agree that we don't like this idea of being under someone's control, being told what to do. But the reality is we all want to do what we want to do when we want to do it, right? That's part of being human. But here's the thing. As much as we resist this idea of being under control, all of us, turn to the person next to you and say, you? Now turn to your second choice, because maybe they're your second favorite, and say, you too. Every single one of us would probably never say it this way, but all of us are controlled in some way or another by our emotions, by our moods, and by our vibes. We're controlled by our emotions, our moods, and our vibes. Think about this, and it's not just like one age group. It's not just, I'm not just picking on you because you're in middle school or high school or you're a student. No, this is a kid thing. Recently, Lainey got to have her first sleepover, okay? Now, it was wild. They're like best of friends, and so this girl's dropped off at her house. Like, she's pumped. Lainey's like, yay, sleepover. This is going to be the best thing ever. Within an hour, they were in opposite ends of our house. Opposite ends. And I go in to talk to Lainey. I'm like, Lainey, what's going on? Lainey's like pout face, just arms crossed. And she's like, I'm not playing with Jocelyn anymore. And I was like, what happened? Like, you guys were the best of friends. Like, you've been best friends for a while. Like, what happened? She took my blanket. Like, she's like seriously so bent and just putting off really ugly vibes. And I'm like, this is awkward. This is going to be a long night. It's only like 5 o'clock and you guys will go to bed for like a couple hours and you're going to sleep. Oh my goodness, this is going to be bad. But it's not just a kid thing. It's a student thing, an adult thing. What if our life was a little bit like this? Like, have you ever seen an adult that looks like this? Check this out.
I don't want to pay bills. I don't want to pay bills. I don't want to pay. I want to be there now. I want to be there now. No. I don't know where I'm going. Mama. Where's my Wi-Fi? I hate you, Wi-Fi. I hate you. I wanted soy. It is soy. I wanted soy. I wanted soy.
Anyone relate? Has anyone maybe, like, you don't have to raise your hand, anyone ever seen your parents act that way before? Just kidding. Now, while this is not that extreme, I'm guessing that you guys can remember a situation where your emotions got you in trouble, right? Maybe you got into an argument with a parent and you said or did something in the middle of that argument that got you grounded. Your anger kind of took over and you're just like, yeah, you know what? You're never fair. Like, this is the worst thing ever. And you just kind of explode. Maybe you said something really terrible about someone or another person because jealousy took over and you look back and you're like, what was I doing? That doesn't even sound like me. Sometimes our emotions can take control, guys. And when that happens, we don't always make the best decisions. In fact, before I go any further, I want you to think for a moment with me. Is there an emotion, a negative emotion that has the most control over you? Like, think about when this thing comes on, it's like no matter what you do, you just kind of lose it. Is there an emotion? You don't have to share it. You don't have to raise your hand, but just think in your mind right now, is there an emotion, a negative emotion that has the most control over you? An emotion that when you feel it, it's almost seemed like there's nothing you can do. What's the emotion that shows up most often in your life? Sometimes without even you realizing it. Maybe you're thinking in your mind, you're like, man, it's definitely anger for me. I've got a little bit of a rage monster living inside. And Xbox Live just doesn't facilitate that very well. Maybe it's anxiety for you. Or maybe it's jealousy. Maybe your emotion that just seems to constantly be most consistent in your life is loneliness or guilt. And this list could go on. These are just a few. And as we've grown older, we've learned to kind of monitor our emotions. We don't act like toddlers anymore, but we just monitor them. And for example, maybe when you experience anger at home, you're slamming doors, or you're chucking your Xbox controller across the room, and you're like, ah! But at school, or when you're around friends, or you're at a friend's house, you're not doing those things, right? You're kind of monitoring. You're like, I can't do that here at school. I can't slam the door. Or maybe jealousy. You're letting jealousy like kind of drive you when it comes to an ex, but you're not doing anything super stalkerish, or at least you hope not. So we've learned to kind of monitor, like just watch. We're like, oh, this is about to happen, but to a certain degree, and sometimes it works. Sometimes we're like, okay, crisis averted, didn't slam the door, the Xbox controller's not broken, whew. Or, wow, I didn't go like look at 10 of his pictures and like see who he's hanging out with, whew, crisis alerted. But sometimes it doesn't work out, right? What if monitoring our emotions isn't the solution? What if there's a better way? What if there's a better way? What if there's a solution that goes beyond simply just monitoring our emotions? And the thing I love about Jesus, guys, is that so much of what Jesus teaches is super applicable to our lives, regardless if we call ourselves a Christian. And tonight, the subject matter we're looking at is one of those topics. And I believe that if what Jesus said is true, that this could change our lives. He invites us to simply look beyond monitoring our emotions and to offer freedom. Isn't that what you really want, is freedom? Right? We talked about how we feel when control's in our life, but don't we really want freedom? And I believe that Jesus offers that invitation to us tonight. And so if you have a Bible, you can turn to Mark chapter 7. And we're going to look at verse 5, and then we're going to read through a good portion of this chapter in Mark. And while you're turning there and while it's going on the screen, I just want to give you some of the setup of the context of Mark, because how the Bible is written in the context and the audience to who it was written to are really important for us to get the meaning. And so Mark is written to a predominantly Roman and Greek audience. People that often are referred to in the Bible as Gentiles. How many of you have ever heard that word Gentiles before? And you're like, what is that all about? The word Gentile simply means not Jewish. And so Mark is writing to, if you're not Jewish in this room, to the majority of us who are Roman and Greek, and his emphasis is to focus on Jesus as a servant. Jesus as a humble and suffering servant. And so he writes a lot about the ways that Jesus served people and loved people. And it's really incredible. But Jesus is hanging out in Mark chapter 5 with his closest friends, his 12 disciples. And the Pharisees, who are the experts of the law, they were for hundreds of years, they were like passed down to be the scribes, the students of the law, and they had kind of took it upon themselves to be the stewards of God's written law, and had adapted it for their own purposes. And so they're on the prowl. They're looking for Jesus. They're looking for a way to trap Jesus, to correct Jesus, to expose Jesus that he is a fraud. And so they are looking, and they find something that they think, man, this will get him for sure. And so we're picking up in the tension of their attack on Jesus. So Mark chapter 7, verse 5. And the Pharisees and the scribes asked him, "Why do your disciples not walk according to the tradition of the elders, but they eat with defiled hands?" And he said to them, "Well did Isaiah prophesy of you hypocrites. As it is written, this people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. In vain do they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. You leave the commandment of God and hold the tradition of men." And then he said to them, "You have a fine way of rejecting the commandment of God in order to establish your tradition." Then he goes on to give them an example written from Moses' law, the 10 Commandments. And one of the 10 Commandments is to honor your father and mother. And he exposes a way that they've twisted that law to fit their own agenda. So he says, you, in essence, use gifts as a bribe not to honor your parents and call it honoring me when it doesn't. So we're going to skip that part and go to verse 14 because there's a whole message in there as well. Verse 14, he says, "And he called the people," this is after he left them, "and said to them, 'Hear me, all of you, and understand there is nothing outside a person that by going into him can defile him. But the things that come out of a person are what defile him.' And when he had entered the house and left the people, his disciples asked him about the parable." They're like, "What? What was that about, Jesus?" And he said to them, Are you also without understanding? Do you not see that whatever goes into a person from the outside cannot defile him, since it enters not his heart, but his stomach, and is expelled? Thus he declared all foods clean." Verse 20, "And he said to them, what comes out of a person is what defiles him. For out of the heart of a man come evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, coveting, wickedness, deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, foolishness. All these things come from within, and they defile a person." God, tonight I just ask that we would step beyond our feelings, God, and emotions and see truth. I ask that you would help us to receive the invitation of freedom that you offer, that we would abandon our own thoughts of righteousness and our works, and we would receive grace tonight. Help us, Lord, and help me in your name. Amen. So let's unpack this a little bit because there's a lot here, and it's important to understand what's going on in this passage. So right away, verse 5, they're like, "Why don't your disciples, in essence, wash their hands before they eat?" How many of you wash your hands before you eat? You don't have to raise your hands, but I'm hoping that there's some hands in the place. But gross, right? This wouldn't fly in 2021 in this COVID time. You'd like, "Hey, wash your hands." In fact, before COVID, it was amazing how many times I'd be in the men's restroom and I'd see someone walk in and use the restroom and walk straight out. So gross, right? I'm like, man, wash your hands, come on. But we have to understand that in this context, this was so much more than just hygiene. This is a cultural and covenant issue here. And so the law of the elders that they're talking about was the spoken law. It wasn't the written law of Moses, it was the spoken law. You see, in the Old Testament, in covenant law, the law that God gave Moses, it was the written law. And it included 10 commandments as well as 103 other commandments. And then there was the law that was passed down from word of mouth. That's the spoken law. And so what the Pharisees and teachers of the law would do is they crafted, kind of expounded upon it and built this tradition to honor God. They really thought, like, if we keep these things, we can honor God. But many times it was tricky because the oral law or the spoken law would come into conflict with the written law. And so they would use this ritual purity and this religious traditions that went beyond the scriptural commands. And all the washing laws of hands and pots and pans, it was good. It was a good intent. It was meant to remind the Jews that they were unclean before God. In other words, that God was good, that God was holy and different, and that they had sin and they were not. And so this was good, but they were completely off base on the true source of their impurity. See, they weren't They were looking outside, but their problem was not the outside, but the inside. It wasn't their hands, it was their hearts. However, for them, they were really about comparison. How many of you have ever been stuck in a comparison trap before? Just kind of looking around. Maybe it's a report card, maybe it's a dress code, whatever, and you're just kind of looking around, but it's really hard to compare hearts when you can compare the outside stuff. I can look at someone and be like, they didn't wash their hands and I'm better than them. But it's really hard for me to judge their heart. That's something only God can do. And so they decided to drop a list of external religious activities and see who came out on top. And that's much easier to do. And so the Pharisees used these traditions to establish kind of their superiority among common folk. They were like, man, we're so good. We honor God. And so the debate that Jesus is having with the Pharisees is the debate between two different ways of understanding what it meant to be a good Jew in the first century. So Jesus has his work cut out for him. And I love the way that he responds. He answers in a genius way. Instead of coming at them directly, he goes backwards and quotes the prophet Isaiah. He says, Isaiah's right when he prophesied about you, you're hypocrites. In other words, you say one thing, but you're doing a completely other thing. You honor me with your lips, but your lives and your hearts are far from me. Your spiritual activity is in vain, and you're teaching merely human rules. In other words, you're not trying to lead people closer to God. You're looking for power plays to maintain control and build your own resume. But Jesus isn't done. He goes to verse 14. He says, hear me, all of you, and understand. There's nothing outside a person that by going into him can defile him, but the things that come out a person are what defile him. So, again, back in the day, God gave the people a law. God gave the people law, and his intention was that they would be holy in his sight, that they would be right, but it was for their benefit. It wasn't just because he was like, oh, you didn't wash your hands, I hate you. It was for their good. It wasn't a manipulating or controlling their behavior. And Jesus says, basically, don't you see that whatever enters your mouth goes into your stomach and not your body? Pretty much a biology lesson, right? But what comes out of a person's mouth, those are the things that defile him, which just means that we are in conflict with God because of what comes out of our heart, not what we accidentally eat. I'm like, oh, see the martyrs in Jesus' day. A martyr is someone that is killed for their faith. Killed for their faith. They're Christian martyrs, but the elite Jewish martyrs of that day in the first century were people that were tortured or killed because they refused to eat food, particularly pork. And so they would be really built up really high. However, what Jesus is saying here is we're not in conflict with God because we accidentally eat the wrong thing. We're in conflict with God when what comes out of our mouths hurts people and hurts God. So he's centering on a completely different reality. He goes on to explain to the disciples what comes out of a person is what defiles him. For within, out of the heart of man, come these evil thoughts and sexual immorality and theft and murder and adultery, and covetousness and wickedness and deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within, and they defile a person. Haven't you guys found this to be true? That everything starts with a thought. Everything starts with a thought. Everything. Jesus mentions murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, and foolishness. Every one of those things begins with a thought. And that last word says foolishness, and that really sums it up. Foolishness isn't just bad judgment. Or foolishness is just bad judgment, and that your greatest regrets with friends and family are a result of bad judgment. Said, man, what was I thinking? Why would I say that? Every time you felt that, that's foolishness. And Jesus is saying that all this stuff, all those things start in our thoughts and emotions. Now think about that. Here's what we're going to be looking at over the next couple weeks. Here's what is connected to this. We're going to be talking about the anger that we can't seem to have control over. We're going to be talking about the FOMO that seems to get us in trouble and causes regret. We're going to be talking about the fear that we look at and wish we could just, I wish we could just chill out a little bit. Now, the reality is that emotions aren't always bad things, right? I'm not trying to be up here and be like, don't you feel, Pedro? Okay? No feeling. Don't smile. It's not okay. Just be blah. No. Emotions aren't bad. Emotions are part of being human, even the negative. Human. When we experience joy and happiness and laughter, when we experience pain and sorrow, they help us to figure out what's right and wrong around us. But when they control us and when they become the ultimate source of truth in our lives, that's when we get into trouble. That's when things go wrong. That's when what keeps us from living the full life that Jesus intended us to live and in the freedom that Jesus intended us to be. Emotions are an incredible gift, but they're a terrible boss. Can I just say that? They're a terrible controlling factor in our lives. Now, people that die of hypothermia, weird transition, right? People that die of hypothermia are most of the time found naked. Weird, right? In their last moments, they began to think and feel that they were incredibly warm, so they just shed all their clothes. And oftentimes, isn't that kind of what emotions do to us? What feels right, man, this feels so right, is actually the worst thing that we can act upon. What feels right, right? Some of us are literally out there and we're shivering, dying of hypothermia because we keep giving in to our feelings. What feels right isn't always right. We need a better compass. We need a better boss. We need a better guide. And Jesus invites us to a better way. I'm going to invite Rebecca to come up. So I know that this is hard. I know that this is, what if our lives could be different? What if there was a better way? Imagine how different your life would be. Think about that for a minute. Imagine what it was like if you didn't have to act on every single emotion that you felt, or that your parents didn't have to act on the same emotions that they felt. That your brother could stop acting out of anger, or your mom could stop acting out of jealousy, or your dad could stop acting out of anxiety, or you could stop reacting out of fear. Imagine what life would be like. I imagine pretty different, right? But I also imagine that this is hard. But the reality is that because of Jesus, emotions don't have to be the boss of you. Because of Jesus, emotions don't have to be the boss of you. Jesus invites us to trust not like the Pharisees in our external righteousness, or like maybe what we're struggling with, our internal feelings. He invites us to trust in his perfect work on our behalf on the cross, what he's done. Now, I know this might sound silly, but I want you guys to imagine saying this in your own mind, okay? You don't have to say this out loud, but ready? I know this is going to sound silly, but emotions, you're not the boss of me. Emotions, you're not the boss of me. Now, some of you just laughed in your mind, okay? I get that. It sounds really crazy, but in your mind, I want you to just say this with me. In your mind, okay? Not out loud, but just 1, 2. You're not the boss of me. Anger, you're not the boss of me. Even if I have the right to be angry, you're not the boss of me. Jealousy, you're not the boss of me. Even if she has the GPA I want and he has the family I want, jealousy, you don't get to tell me how to treat her. Fear, you aren't the boss of me. Even if I'm nervous of what people think of me, nervous to show up, nervous about failing, nervous to try, fear, you don't get to decide what I do. The truth is, guys, this doesn't come naturally for us. And so 2 things I want you to try is I want you to try to think of your top 1 or 2 emotions that you have the hardest time controlling. Think for me right now, like, what are 2 emotions that you really struggle to control? These emotions are the ones that control you more than you'd like. Maybe it's anger or fear or anxiety or lust or greed or jealousy. What's the one emotion, no matter how hard you try, keeps showing up in your life? Second thing I want you to try is this week checking in with yourself. I want you to begin asking yourself at the end of each day, how am I really doing? Not how I wish I was doing, but how am I really doing? As I look back on the day, I want you to pay attention to the emotions that were a big part of it. Were they positive or negative? If there were some negative ones, are you still holding on to them? What caused you to feel them? Was it a person or a situation? Pay attention to those emotions you're holding on to. And I know this is uncomfortable because we live in a society that doesn't really support that kind of authenticity, right? There's always an app, there's always a commercial, there's always something to cover up what you feel. There's always some kind of therapy that goes beyond actually looking in your own heart and being honest with yourself. If you could just, buy this or get that like or have that relationship, it just disappear and then I'll be okay. But I want to invite you to be honest with yourself. God didn't invite us not to feel, or create us not to feel. Feeling is good, even the difficult stuff. We just have to figure out what to do next. And if you're a Jesus follower, can I just encourage you that this is a big deal. This is a big deal to surrender our control to Jesus. This is a big deal in our emotions. Emotions aren't meant to be the boss of you. Jesus was meant to be the boss of us. He's so much better. He's such a better, and boss is a word that some of us have connotations of, but he's the Lord of my life. He's the king of my life. He's not an arrogant or domineering, controlling boss. He is like, this is what's best for you. Seriously, this is the way to the best life, to the good life. Do you trust me? Do you trust me? Satan, time and time again, will try to get us to question the goodness of God. That's what he did with Eve. He's like, did God really say that? God's trying to hold something back for you, Eve. He does the same thing for me and for you. But Jesus follower, get this. His way is so much better. Think about it this way. In Matthew 11:28, he says this. He says, come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. In John 14, he says, peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you, not as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. Jesus is such a better Lord of our life. He's such a better leader. It's such a blessing to get to follow Jesus. Will we receive that invitation tonight? If you follow him, you'll find out for yourself, guys. Because of Jesus, emotions don't have to control you. Because of him, you don't have to live out of your own external righteousness, but you can live out of what he has already accomplished for you. What if we were confident that our emotions and moods and vibes that control us no longer are our boss? How different would your life be? Think about it for a minute. How different would life be if you weren't controlled by your vibes? If your mom didn't let fear control her, if your dad didn't let anger control him, if your stepbrother didn't let jealousy, how different would it be? And I know this is hard because I know that there might, for some of you, be an emotional stronghold in your life. What is a stronghold? I mean, some of us are like, what is that? A stronghold is any area of your life which you have become entrenched into believing something that isn't true or doing something you shouldn't be doing. I'm going to say that again. And a stronghold is when you believe something that is not true. you're entrenched in it, that becomes a reality, or you continue to do something you shouldn't be doing. And as a result, Satan has a fortified position in your life. It's something that's really hard. To put it another way, you're constantly being pulled in the wrong direction by your vibes, by your feelings, by your emotions. Constantly being pulled. But guys, the good news is that Jesus came to tear down strongholds. Jesus came to tear down the strongholds in your life, the emotional, the anxiety that you feel, the fear that you feel, the anger that you feel, the jealousy that you feel, the lust that you feel, the greed that you feel, the pride that you continue to feel, the deceit, you just can't stop lying. Jesus came to tear them down. Jesus came to tear them down. So I want to encourage you tonight. Go ahead and stand with me tonight. I have 3 different invitations tonight, 3 different ways for us to respond. Each of them, I want to empower you and encourage you to respond to Jesus tonight. The first one is to reflect. I want you to just sit for a moment up here. I want you to come up here and just ask God, where are my blind spots and my triggers emotionally? God, is it anger? Is it greed? Is it deceit that comes, maybe it's insecurity? God, what are my triggers and my blind spots emotionally? Would you just reveal those to me? And that's only the first part. The second part of that is that when we go to small groups, I want you to be bold. And I want you to be authentic and real and share that with your small group. Guys, can I be honest? Like, transformation doesn't happen in rows. It doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in circles. It happens when I care enough to say, you know what, I'm struggling, guys. And then I can have a community around me that loves Jesus and that loves me. So that's the first part. I want you to reflect. The second is to respond and surrender to the reality of the grace of God. Maybe you've never made that commitment before to trust Jesus. You've trusted in yourself and your goodness and your works and all these different things. Whatever it is, you've bet on yourself. You're like, all chips are in. I'm betting on myself that I can make it. I can do it on my own. And tonight you're maybe starting to question that. You're like, actually, I can't. Actually, if I'm really honest with myself, I see that I'm falling short of the standard that God has. That's called sin. But the good news is that God hates sin, but loves sinners. And that we can come to him, and by his grace, and when we turn from our wickedness, when we turn from our sin and say, Jesus, I'm sorry. Jesus, change my heart and life. He says, as far as the east is from the west, man, I love you. He's going to make something new. So that's the second one. And the third one is just stepping into victory. If you're a Christ follower or anyone in between, you recognize, man, there's a stronghold that's in my life. Guys, can I be honest with you? I know I can, so I'm going to. Is that in preparing this series, I began to ask the Lord, I was like, God, is there a stronghold in my life? And God began to reveal in me an insecurity, a stronghold of insecurity in my life. And it came from the fact of when I was young, I was abused. And I felt like I had to hide all the time under that shame and guilt. I felt like I had to just put on the right face. And I would lie to myself, and I would lie to others. And I thought I had dealt with it completely, but God was reminding me, and it was uncomfortable. Can I be honest? It was uncomfortable. But I'm so thankful that I was just praying, and I've been praying. I'm praying, God, tear this stronghold down. Tear down this insecurity that's in my life. It has no hold on me. I rebuke it in the name of Jesus. That's not the identity you've called me to, God. And I can walk in victory. I can walk in victory. I don't have to walk in shame. Because the reality is that the power that leads to victory is not in us or from us. Can I be honest? That the power that leads to victory and overcoming strongholds and overcoming our emotions, it's not in us. It's not from us. It's from God's hand. It's to us. And we have to choose it. We have to choose to walk in victory. So tonight, those are the calls. So first, if tonight you're just going to reflect, you're just going to ask, I want you to come forward. I want you to be bold. Come forward. Just, man, God, reveal that to me right now. If you're wanting to surrender to the reality of the goodness and grace of God, embracing and turning from our sin and surrendering to him, I want you to come forward right now. Okay, don't wait, guys. Let's start this new year off right. If you're recognizing that you want to walk in greater victory over the strongholds in your life, you want to receive the power that's from God's hand to overcome, that can only come from him, I want you guys to come forward right now. And leaders, just be ready to, let's go ahead and just pray for students. Go to a leader, like just, leaders, go to students. Just begin to pray.
wherever you're standing, guys, just go ahead and join in worship. We're going to sing Build My Life.
Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken.
Matt, can you keep singing that?
And I will build my life upon your love.
I want you guys to think right now, what's the emotional stronghold, or what's the emotion that maybe God is revealing to you that has power over you?
And I will not be shaken. I will build.
And I want you to be bold. I want you to say this out loud with me. I'm gonna say insecurity. Say insecurity, I choose not to trust you. Say fear, I choose not to trust you. Say worry, I choose not to trust you. Greed, I choose not to trust you. Pride, I choose not to trust you. I choose to trust in the love of God. I choose to build my hope in my life on the love of God, on his love for me. And that when we know love because he first loved us, the word says. We know even what love is like, even in its imperfect way. Whether we've been a follower of Jesus, we know what love is because Jesus loved us. Because God is love. So I choose not to trust in my insecurity. I rebuke you, insecurity. I choose to trust in the love of Jesus, in the strength of Jesus. Thank you, God. Yes, God. Thank you that you are trustworthy, that it is not crumbling. It's not a sandcastle, God. It's concrete. It's not aluminum foil. It's titanium, God. I choose to trust and build my life on your love. I choose. God, I pray that 2021, God, would be a year where our feet would be firmly planted, that we would have deep roots in the reality of your love. Thank you, God, for what you are doing and how you are working. Thank you for these students, these world changers, God, that are responding right now. They're not waiting for tomorrow. They're not waiting for the opportune moment. They are responding right now to you. And you know what they are coming here with, God. You know what they've carried into this place. I pray that you would continue to minister to them, to continue to empower them, and supply victory for them. Thank you, Jesus. We can say together, amen, amen. Before we go into small groups, I'm actually going to invite up Kara, who's going to lead us in a game. You guys cool with that? I know this is great stuff. This is exciting. I'm excited for you. What a great way to start 2021. Man. While she's coming up, I just want to make a quick announcement. I had someone come and talk to me on the break about being baptized. And so I just want to encourage any of you, if you've made a decision to follow Jesus tonight, to come talk to a leader about being baptized. We want to do baptisms more often. Wasn't that so amazing? What an powerful way to finish 2020, right?
Yeah.
And so we want to make that a normal part of what we do, of how we celebrate together what God is doing. Sound good? So Kara, what are we doing? Sounds Gouda, right? Gouda. All right, Kara, lead us in this amazing game. Give it up for Kara.
What's up, y'all? How's everybody doing?
Good? Okay, do you guys like music? Pedro, you can't play. Okay, so we're going to be playing a game called Pitch Perfect. As you can see, our lovely graphic. Thank you, Pastor Jeff. Okay, so I'm just going to be reading off of this. So in this game, you guys will be hearing some songs you may be familiar with, songs you probably might not know. But you are not going to be singing them how they're normally sung. You're going to be singing them using the two words, da and dat. You guys got that? Rebecca's got it. I need 6 people. Eager people. Grace? Jaden? Pedro? You guys can just stand right here. Yep. I got 3. I need 3 more for another team. You guys are so excited. I'm so pumped. Christian's seen it. Court? Yeah, okay. We need 2 more. I think
there's some over here that are like trying.
Yeah? You guys? Okay, all right, you're the next team. Yep. So you guys can just stand over here. Yep. So Grace, Pedro. Okay, Adam? Grace, Pedro, Jaden, Hubbard, Court, and remind me your name? Jacob? And Jacob. Okay. Okay, so you guys are on teams, obviously. We just figured that out. We're going to take turns. I have 7 songs, so I have 6 songs, or 1 for each of you, and then a tiebreaker for the end. So, Grace, would you like to start, because you're not listening? Yeah? Okay. So I'm just going to show you just the top one.
Oh, sweet. No.
Okay, so Pedro, you're going to try and guess what she's singing.
Wait, what are the words?
Oh, da and dat. So, like, it's the tune of it. So,
Okay. Da 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 da. We are the champions by Queen.
okay. So pass it along to Pedro.
Oh no.
COVID don't care.
This
in
is
house.
bad.
Okay, so.
What is that?
You don't know that one? Okay.
No. I don't listen to music.
Can you do that one? James gonna be guessing.
What were the words? That.
You got it right. Yeah.
I don't know how I'm gonna do this.
Da and dat. Those are the 2 words.
I don't know how to do this with dot and dat. That's a good song. And no, hold on. I don't know where to start. Oh no, I got this. Hold on. Let me just find it. Da 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 da. I don't know what I'm singing either, and I even know the song.
You got it.
How am I supposed to know if he doesn't know?
It's a hit song from like 2018. I think it was
2019.
No way, it's 2019. Really?
Yeah, because I was in 5th grade. Yep.
I'm the one that picked that song. I'm the one that picked that song for this game.
Here you go.
And you still didn't know. Okay.
No, what do I do?
Okay.
I thought it was like Meet the Flintstones.
If they don't get it right, we'll go to the other team.
I don't know. No, I think we'll just play it. Just finish our songs? Okay.
So this team only has 1 point. 7 Nation Army.
Yes.
Okay. So, Hubbard, you're going to be guessing what he's...
Da 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 da. I sound so dumb. Da 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 da. Yeah.
Okay, so this team has 1 point.
What am I doing? No, that's the whole song. It's the same thing.
Wait, what did you say?
You were so close.
I kind of want to count.
Can we give it to
Shake
him?
it up.
That's the same thing.
Yeah, okay. It was Shaken Off by Taylor Swift. Okay.
I'm singing Happy, right? Huh.
Serenade Jacob.
Okay. I'm just kind of.
Look at him right in the eyes.
Da 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 da.
No capacity.
Da 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 da. Shrek.
Just say you're not too far off.
Superstar. That's pretty close.
That's really close.
Da 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 da.
That's a baseball.
I don't think that's gonna help.
Okay.
It's all stuff.
It was All Star.
Now everyone gets to try to guess. Everyone is try to guess.
Okay. I have a tiebreaker at the end.
Okay.
Okay.
Da 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 da.
Yeah, you guys, all you guys can guess.
He got it.
Oh, wow.
He got it.
Okay, they got it. Okay, so you both teams got 2 points, so now I have a tiebreaker. I want one person from each team. Grace, okay.
I volunteer as tribute.
With Hubbard? Okay. Okay. Okay, I want you to guess, and then I want you to sing this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah. Let's do the whole song. And that's the game. I still have the microphone.
I kind of want you to keep going. Okay. Now what? Oh, now we're gonna transition to our small groups. So middle school girls are gonna be. We're gonna all do it together.
Transition music, go. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do-do.
Thanks.
Good job, guys.